Hi, I'm Nate Seberg, and this is One Day Ahead. Welcome to the summary and analysis of Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scenes 3 through 4. Quick reminder, this is not a spoiler-free video, fair warning. But if you're good to go, then gather some herbs and answer a letter as we dive into Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scenes 3 and 4. It's the next morning, and a new character, Friar Lawrence, is gathering medical herbs in the pre-dawn light. He is ruminating on contradictions and paradoxes, that the earth is both a place of death and a womb of birth, that his herb can be both poison and medicine, that anything good can be twisted and used for ill. For not so vile that on the earth doth live, but to the earth some special good doth give. Nor aught so good but, strained from that fair use, revolts to true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns vice being misapplied, and vice sometimes by action dignified. So 30 lines of this is plenty. Thankfully, Romeo arrives. A quick note on friars here. Lawrence is a member of the Franciscan friars. He's like a monk. He has taken a vow of poverty and chastity and obedience to the teachings of Christ. He's like a monk in that way, but while monks live largely withdrawn from the world, living life in self-sustaining monasteries, friars engage with and minister to society. So he is a known, trusted member of the society and a spiritual guide to Romeo. When Romeo arrives so early in the morning, he assumes something must be troubling him. Young son, it argues a distempered head, so soon to bid good morrow to thy bed. He spends a while on that before he finds the truth. Or if not so, then here I hit it right. Our Romeo hath not been in bed tonight. He assumes Romeo has been with Rosaline, but then Romeo catches him up to speed. Then plainly know, my heart's dear love is set on the fair daughter of rich Capulet, and mine on hers, so hers is set on mine, and all combine save what thou must combine. When and where and how we met, we wooed, we made exchange of vow, I'll tell you as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today. The friar is floored by this, and he's like, go back a second. He dresses Romeo down for how he handled things with Rosaline, and his analysis is incisive, saying that he was doting, not loving, and that Rosaline had him figured out. Oh, she knew well, thy love did read by rote that could not spell, meaning he sounded like he had memorized a book of love poetry rather than speaking it from his heart. I bring this up because it's nice to see an adult yelling at Romeo. It's kind of cathartic. With Romeo firmly chided, he returns to the point. He consents to marry Juliet and Romeo in secret, but only from a place of pure utility. In one respect, I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may happy prove to turn thy household's rancor into pure love. And while this action does resolve the conflict, the families ultimately will be bound not by love, but by grief. And that's scene 3. Scene 4 opens to Mercutio and Benvolio, still wondering where Romeo is. It's the next morning, and they have learned 2 facts. 1, Romeo never came home last night. And 2, Tybalt sent a formal challenge to the Montague house demanding a duel. This is Tybalt making good on his vow after he discovered Romeo attending the Capulet party in Act 1, Scene 5. Benvolio is confident that Romeo will answer it, meaning accept the challenge, but Mercutio says Romeo has already been slain, metaphorically, by Rosaline. From there, Mercutio discusses Tybalt, and he's not real charitable. He calls him the Prince of Cats. Tybalt was another word for cat, and he basically says that he's a pretty boy who, like a kitty, is all fluff. He's pretentious, fashion-forward, and though he trains with a sword, for him, it's more about style than actual combat. Finally, Romeo arrives, and they quickly notice he is still in his party clothes. Mercutio assumes he's been with Rosaline and begins comparing her mockingly to famous beauties of antiquity, saying she must outshine them all. We will come back to that in a second. Romeo and Mercutio then get into good-natured mockery. It's jokes, and it threads its way through with lines and lines and lines of wordplay. We could go into it, but it gets so dense and the payoff is so nowhere near worth it, I'm not doing it. With that, the nurse arrives, and together with Romeo, they hatch a plan. Juliet is to devise some means to come to Shrift this afternoon. Shrift is confession. And there she shall, at Friar Lawrence's cell, be shrived, which meant absolved of sin, and married. Finally, the nurse furnishes Romeo with a rope ladder, so he can climb up to her bedroom on their wedding night, which is in like 8 hours or something. I don't know. They met yesterday. The nurse hurries home and Romeo goes, hopefully to shower. And that's scene 4. So if we really want to understand Shakespeare, we gotta get deeper than just plot. Let's do a little analysis. So in scene 3, we meet Friar Lawrence. His role within this play is hard to pin down. You're gonna need to make up your own mind about this guy. But one thing is for certain, even more than the nurse, this is the one adult who can see the whole board. This is the one guy outside of our lovers who we can credibly say bears some of the direct guilt for what happens here. His intentions are good, no question, but in many respects, he is like the herbs he is pontificating about at the jump here. Under some circumstances, healing, mending, breathing life. Under others, fatal. Finally, I want to turn your attention to a particular allusion by Mercutio that happens in scene 4, line 36. He's talking about Petrarch, who was a famous 14th century poet that I am not going to pretend like I've actually read. Petrarch wrote a bunch of love poems about a woman named Laura. Mercutio says that Romeo must think Laura is but a kitchen wench beside Rosaline. But then he goes further, naming 4 other beauties from antiquity that Romeo must think can't stand beside his now former love. He says, Dido a dowdy, Cleopatra a gypsy, Helen and Hero, Hydlings and harlots, Thisbe a grey eye or so, but not to the purpose. So Dido was a Phoenician queen in Virgil's The Aeneid. Cleopatra was the real-life lover of Julius Caesar and later of Mark Antony. Hero in Greek myth was a priestess of Aphrodite whose lovers swam across a channel to be with her. And Thisbe is a character in Ovid's Metamorphoses. And what do all of these have in common? They all killed themselves. Dido after her lover leaves, Cleopatra when they had lost the Roman civil war to Augustus, Hero after her lover drowns in a storm, and Thisbe, who is kept from her lover by her parents' rivalry, escapes to be with him, runs away when she sees a lion dropping her cloak, her lover turns up, sees the cloak, assumes she's been eaten, kills himself, then she returns, finds him dead, and does the same thing. Does that not sound familiar? A little light foreshadowing here. And that's Act 2, Scene 3 and 4. Thank you for watching. Next time we head to Act 2, Scene 5 and 6. We'll see you next time on One Day Ahead.